why don't we just talk about being bass players and what we're gonna do to make what I do in the moment when I'm thinking of playing a song. Like say, last night we did a few songs that like Limehouse Blues, and we did trying to think of some of the other ones. Usually the fast ones I remember mostly, but they come at you. But say like, what song did you guys play last night when you were jamming?
We did an All of Me for once.
All of Me?
Yeah.
Okay, so All of Me, that's a good one. So we could talk about that, but yet generally, if I'm in some kind of situation, like say we're all kind of in this area where we're playing tenor music and we're playing old standards, but more in a kind of a bluegrassy kind of environment or stylistic. I don't think it really matters, but what would be my note choices, and what would I do that I might think would make the rest of the musicians in the band comfortable, and how would I do that? So my first choice, like say if we're doing All of Me, so we got C major, and then we got E, I think it's E7, and then A minor, or A7 or something like that, A something.
It's in
And then D, and then it goes on and on and on. So one of the things I would do is I would just head for the root, like most of us would just play the root. Now, sometimes that can seem kind of elusive because I have a lot of students, and then I'm going, okay, well, make sure that you play the root before you play anything else. And they may be thinking, okay, I got to play the root before I play anything else, and they're going, what's the root? Because they're going, where's all the notes on my bass that I want to play? And this is understandable because in the moment it can get kind of confusing. And for some people who have a lot of experience playing music, it's probably not confusing at all. And for others, it's so I would just play this. I would just play that as a note, right? And if I couldn't play anything else, I would just be like da da do, da da do do do, da da do, do 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 do, right? And so I would just be doing that. And chances are, most people that are like in a jam session or even on a gig, where they go, "Oh, that's cool. We have bass, and it's doing the function that I want it to do. It's not doing anything else but the function I wanted." And so if I had, so if I had that much time, like playing C, and I would do it, I wouldn't necessarily try to do too much else, unless I was really comfortable with the group, or I knew that I was going to, nobody was paying attention to what I was doing, because they're too much into their own little world. And so I might, and then they go, oh, they wouldn't look at me because at least they heard this at the first of the song. They heard this root C, and so I just did a little thing. But so some of the treatments. I'm just put this down for a second. But and feel free to butt in or ask me questions, because I work better that way. So let's say my first chord is C, and I wanted to. So my note choices could be like the root. And where would I put this note? I'd probably put it on 1 and 3 at the most. I mean, at the very least, at the beginning. Now I could just play it or 1, 2, 3, 4, and just play on those beats, you know. And this would probably make everybody happy because they'd be going, oh, there's rhythm happening, and there's the solidity of the bass function. So the chords I'm playing on my most likely guitar or tenor guitar, as we have here, but could be pianist or a vocalist. They're going to go, oh, I know that my lyrics are going to fit over that note, you know. So what are some of the other things that I could do to make it more exciting? How can I bring a little more musicianship into playing the bass? Well, one of the things I might want to do is my second choice, and I would go root, and then I would play the fifth, right? And then I could just do this over and over. And so nobody would even question that because they're going, oh, well, that sounds like it could be one chord. So that sounds like it could be one chord, or it sounds like it could be two chords. Like I'm actually adding in another chord because I'm playing the fifth of the chord. And so if I were to play and for an example, like if I'm playing like a regular does everybody know what a triad is? Of course you do. Yeah. Now if I'm just playing a C triad, right? But if I do it like this, and then that all of a sudden that sounds like, right, as opposed to, now all of a sudden that C, that root position C triad isn't as interesting because the other one is a little more familiar, and the notes are broken up a little bit. So when I play the fifth underneath anything I'm doing, I'm trying to hear how it's sounding with the other people that I'm playing with. And generally I'm playing with other people. I'm not doing gigs, solo bass gigs. You know, there are some bass players that try to do that, but I'm more than happy to just wait until I have other people to play with. You know, that's kind of what I think. So this is my rationale for doing root 5. Now it could, if you're playing with somebody who's really crafty, they might be going, and then they might play a G7 chord. Everybody know what a G7 chord is? You never heard of a dominant seventh? So they may throw that in there, especially jazz piano players and stuff. They're always looking for opportunities to throw in lots of chord substitutions and stuff like that. But the ones I like anyway. So also, okay. So going on, just let me know if I'm boring you with this, because no choices. So now I've also got root, and then I could do 5, and then I could do the third, and then I could go to anything else. I could go, if I'm going to play 2 bars of C, this is going to be a bar of C here too, I could do the second, and then I would be back to C, or I could go to 5, and that would also sound kind of good, right? So I got a bunch of choices of notes that if I'm in a scalar situation where I've got C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, and then back to 8 or 1. Any one of these note choices might possibly be a good substitution for any one of these notes. And this is kind of where I'm coming from with when I'm practicing the bass. In, like, say I'll do a warm-up exercise in C major. And so if I'm doing this bass line here, root 5-3-5, or root 5-3-2, it might be. Now that sounds pretty good, especially if you have somebody strumming. Could you strum a C chord, please? Now it's a little homogeneous sounding. You know, there's not a lot of character to it, but it's not going to get you fired from playing the bandstand. But you know, it might sound better to. You know, that might be a better choice because the two is a little weak when it's going to 3, or it could be, you know, you could do it like you could do a 7 at the bottom or something. So I'm always looking for. So yeah, that leads me to my next thing. So I'm always looking for chromatic opportunities, and bass players love chromatic opportunities because you don't have to go very far. You can just be a half step, right? So I get this choices. I'm going to talk about that just for a second before I move on to my chromatic opportunities. But I got one of these notes, so I can substitute any one of these notes in for, let's say, if this is going to be 5, I could do it here on the third beat, right? So if I go to the third, I got to the second, and then that's going to sound okay, right? Now what if I do? There's the third, and then the fourth, and that kind of tightens it up a little bit in the sound because it's. But the 4 chord is relevant in most of the music we play, and then I could use 5, of course, or I could do the 6th, which we hear a lot, especially in the old, like last night we did that Bob Wills tune, right? And all those chords are 6 chords and stuff that those guys are playing back. And back in all that old school stuff, before they ever started using major 7ths, they were using 6 chords. And so right, so you can throw that 6 in there. It's really nice. Or how about the 7th? And that's a little unusual. But if we're playing all of me, and somebody is playing a C major 7, might sound okay here if you just went. Right? So this is kind of the beginning of process of my thinking of how I can go after a chord thing. Like if I'm playing with Tyler and Tim and Grant, and when we were playing last night, and they start playing this. They're all over the place because they're unbelievable musicians. But when they're just strumming chords, that's giving me a real good opportunity because they're just going. You know, so I've got a lot of time to think of how can I make this interesting instead of just going. Which isn't very interesting, but it works. It works. And so, you know, so I might introduce chord tones. I might introduce scalar elements. You know, I might do that, that was just a 1, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 3, 4, 6, 5, 6, 3. I mean 5, 6, 7, 2, 1. Right. So it kind of turned the second half of the C major into a dominant chord. Now that sounds like a line that would go over like a G7 chord. So generally, I'm looking for opportunities to add interesting sounding notes, and in certain musical situations, like say last night, or when people are just strumming notes, like when I was playing with the Kingston Trio or something, there were a lot of forbidden notes that I didn't go to because they don't know what those notes are. I mean, so I would just kind of like make sure that it was and so it would just be sixes and thirds and maybe a fourth and stuff like that, but I would never introduce chromaticism when I was working with the Kingston Trio, unless it was a song like Scotch and Soda or something where it had a little more of a jazz element to it, stuff like that. So speaking of that, does anybody have any questions about what I've talked about so far?
I've got a question about, okay, so like all of me, you've got two measures of your C major, right?
Yeah.
So how do you, I mean, to me, it's real easy to fall into a trap of kind of repeating. Like, how do you sort of, or do you have approach to doing like the second one to not sound exactly the other? I mean, do you, without going to the C again, I guess, on that?
Oh, you feel like on the second measure?
Yeah.
Well, okay. So if we're doing that chord, what would you play? What would you play?
Well, I know, if I was going into it, I might choose like a fifth, to start it, just because I've read some books on it or whatever. But in practice, though, I find it in the moment I forget about it a lot of times. And
Going to the fifth?
yeah.
Okay. So yeah, this is something as bass players or musicians who play instruments that have bass notes like guitars and stuff like that. We're always looking for a way to get to know our fingerboard better, get to know our instrument better, and I'm looking for ways. So when I'm in the moment, I'm not going, oh, where am I? Which can happen. Like, where am I on my fingerboard? How did I get in this weird position on my fingerboard? And what are those notes? Because I don't want that happening, but it can happen. So one of the things we can do is like practice. Do you ever practice scales on your bass? Like say we're in C major, so we could practice a C major scale. Now that's kind of like scale number one when we're learning piano, because we don't have to. It's not the easiest scale to play on piano. The fingerings are kind of funny between the two hands, but it is something that I do. And so I always get my students to practice just a C major scale. So they also have to say the names of the notes while they're playing the scale, right? Or the number. Like I had a numbering system 1 through 7, and pretty much all major and minor scales, except for or diminished scales and stuff like that aren't like that. But when we have 7 notes, but right. So I try to get everybody to learn that, and then when they're doing it, I try to go, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C. Right. So as a bass player, I'm reinforcing, or as a musician, I'm reinforcing the names of the notes that I'm playing. So no matter where I am, and it doesn't have to be a long-winded exercise. It could be an exercise that you do for, say, 5 minutes. You say, I'm gonna practice doing this, or I'm gonna go up and down my fretboard with the fret markers and whatever, and I'm just gonna name E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, or A flat, A. You can pick one or the other. B flat, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E. Right? So I'm forcing myself into knowing what those things are. So when I get G flat or G flat G, A flat A, B flat B, C, then I go, oh, there's C, right? So I can look down on it and go, whoa, I'm way the heck up there on my bass, you know? But it's the same C, so I might practice going between one and the other, right? Because if I wanted to get this effect, like you have that fretless bass there, if I want to, if you're doing something that's really kind of high energy and stuff, and then you put a slide in there, people go, oh, that was cool.
Yeah.
I like that. So when we're playing, when I'm playing root to 5, I need to know that all my 5 choices and where they are. Now, a lot of people will just play the 5th that is above, right? So it works, but it's not necessarily the most interesting thing I've ever heard. But there are other G's on my bass, right? There's or it's like, see, just going. Now that's kind of cool because that has a lot of shape and it's going from one place to another, so it gives us the illusion that there is actually a journey that's happening while we're playing, even though we're standing still and we're playing music in a static environment. The music transports us. So if we get into like a really fast thing, it makes it feel like everything's going fast around us, even though in actuality there's somebody in the back, you know, with a drink going, can't you guys go any faster? You know, like, you know, why are you guys freaking out? It's not that fast, you know. But it may seem, so this perception of our environment in all facets of life, but especially for bass playing, we can make that perception become that influences the rest of the group. So one thing I would encourage is, like, if you're playing all of me, is to take the root and 5th of each chord. Oops, sorry. And get to know where they. Right, get to know where they all are, because that way it might make it more fun to know, like even just on that one chord. But we got a whole bunch of chords lining up after. We have so the next chord is E, right? And you don't even need to know what the quality of the chord is unless it's diminished to go. Right? And then A. Right? So we can get those. Get those opened up all over our bass, right? And whether I'm and I haven't even got away from the playing root 5 yet. So as you can see, my choices become exponential because once but they get a little limited, and it's to my technical ability when in the moment. Like if I'm playing something up here, I might not be able to get back down here to do something unless I'm just super and you know, I really want to get that, you know. So mostly I threw in a couple color notes in there, but most of that was just roots and fifths. And I have to say that that would probably work okay. But I need to know where all those roots and fifths are, so then I can start having some fun with it instead of just going, okay, he said roots and fifths, and here's E and here's the fifth, you know, and I'm kind of stuck on that. So one of the things I would encourage is like most of the notes from this song, All of Me, or a lot of our songs, would stick within the harmonic area of the song that is recorded in. Now, say, or written in. So this one's in C major, so it might behoove us to all learn how to play the C major scale. Does everybody know how to do that? We all know how to do that. Okay, so do we know how to do it 2-octave C major scale? So it's like you can get up to the top part of your fretboard, you know, where you.
Was it? No, that was sloppy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the easier ways, and I haven't even talked about chromaticism yet, but let's just talk about learning scales. And I found a trick that helps there we are, thinking of how we're going to learn a C major scale. And the one thing is that we call it a tetrachord. Tetrachord. And what we have is we have C, D, E, F. And there's our tetrachord because we got a whole step, we got a whole step, and a half step. All right? Between these two. And between. So, ba-ba-da-ba, ba-ba-da-ba, 1, 2, 3, 4, ba-ba-da-ba, right? And then the next tetrachord is G, A, B. I like where that's going. G, A, B, C. And we got a whole step, and then a half step, right? So look at that, it's the same thing. Whole, half, whole, half. Now, I realize there is a whole step between these two. But if we're trying to figure out a scale on our bass and saying it's giving us a little difficulty finding a fingering or finding out where it is on the bass, this is a great way. I learned this back in the International Society of Basses. But instead of coming up with a bunch of goofy fingerings all over the bass, we can make it into shiftable areas. So if I went, so the whole step, half step, right? And it looks, I'm just going up one string, right? Or I can do it here. And the root and the fourth are right, and those are right across from each other. So it's not a difficult shift. There's 4, so I just go down a half step. Or so there's the half of my tetrachord. Well, the second half of the scale is exactly the same. And it's the same for, you know, B major. All major scales have that same ticker. And it's like you go, why didn't I think of that? Why didn't I think of that years ago? When you know, and I really never really thought about it because I was sitting there, you know. And I was, you know, just trying to remember where everything was over and over and over. And then I go, oh yeah, the 2 system. Sorry, no rousing on that thing. But so it's the same shape. So if we wanted to get that scale together on the second octave, we could start here and just go. And you could do it easily on that bass, just starting it. So you go, and then another whole step, and then you even have the lines to prove it, right? So can you do that?
From
So you're
the
starting
full-
on the
full
fifth
two
fret,
octaves?
the fifth.
Or
Yeah,
You
go.
want to get here or here?
Well, go ahead and do the lower one.
We'll do the.
Okay, now we're going to start again and go up. Yeah, and I would encourage you to not shift until you get done playing those two notes, right?
Okay.
You make them groups as two. So a group of two. So no, you did a group of three. So just two. And then shift down and go. And then I shift down and do another group of two.
And then
To F to E. And then shift down. Right. Yeah. So I know a lot of bass guitar players and stuff want to play with 4-finger technique, and I'm not trying to discourage that. But this is a great way to learn where the notes are in a quick fashion. So we've got a jam session coming up tonight. You go, I want to get this all of me together, and then I'm going to get C major together before we play it again tonight, because somebody's going to call it. You know, it's one of the tunes they call. So I would encourage learning the C major scale, because then we got different right. So it's all. It's all over the bass, right? So some of the things I practice with C major is to how does it go instead of up and down the strings? How does it go across the strings in each position? You know. All right. Right, and then I can go. And this is just upright bass, because we don't get to shift our hand, open our hands up like this. We can, but it might be a little bit of strain on our hands to be doing that. You see younger players and stuff be doing a lot of this, and that's great. When you get as old as me, then you go, I'm going to abandon that. I'm just going to use my shifting instead. And so that's a nice shape. You got that major seventh. Then I got the next one starting on A to B, D, E, G, A, and C, D. Yeah. There's a nice little lick, Right, so there's like a little bass lick right there built in with a C major, just going horizontal. I guess it would be horizontally across the thing, and starting on the third and to D, then I got B and A, right? So 1 2 1 2 1 4 1 4, and on our upright bass, that'll be kind of nice, because then we got that 10th there. It's already built in. And there's a 6. So I'm just throwing in, like, if I can get 1 2 3 4, and then starting on D. So D, E, G, A, C, D, F, G. is the same as, it's gonna be. So then I'm back to the starting point. And then, right, so I'm back to the starting point, and then it just goes over and over. So there was like 5 different positions that we have to learn. And we can do that. That applies to every key. Every key has those same 5 positions. Although they're in, it depends on the starting point where we are. They're going to be in a different position, right? Is anybody? Am I speaking too fast about this stuff? Because
I'll say that you got a little ahead of me there. Just to be
okay.
I know that you were talking about all the notes of the scale, but I know in reality you were.
You're not doing all the notes for each one.
Yeah.
You're not doing all of
skipping
it.
over certain things. Well,
Yeah. So if I were to take the fretboard of the bass and say this applies to upright too, but and there's my nut, the bass, and I'm just going to add frets here. Hopefully it's going to be enough. Might not be. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'll make this one shorter. Okay. So, and then we got our 4 strings. 1, 2. Oops. I know. Art class. So in the C major scale, I could plot out all the notes that are available to me for 12 frets. And then that's going to repeat after this fret, this 12th fret. And so we got F, right? And we got any other notes here? These are just the side of the bass. This is just the side of the bass there. So we got F, and then the rest of them are open strings, right? F, and then A, D, and G, right? So then the next fret up, we got B, we've got E, right? And then A. Okay. So now it's starting to show a little bit of a pattern. So then in the next fret we got G and C and F. And we don't have B flat. I should have gotten rid of the sides of this page. It's kind of confusing. So then this is our 3rd, 2nd, 1st. And the 4th fret we've got, so this would be G sharp, be C sharp, F sharp, and B. So we got B, right? And then we got the 5th fret, we got A, and we got D, and we got G, and we got C, right? So A, D, G, C, right? And that's like another set of strings. Like if we put a capo there, that would be the tuning of our bass, right? So then the next fret is the 6th fret, and there's B flat, E flat, A flat, and D flat. So none of those are available to us. In the 7th fret, we've got B, and then we've got E, and then we got here A, and D. Okay. D, A, E. Look at that. There's got those 4 and those 4 right across. All right. And so, and then the 8th fret we've got C and F, and then the 9th fret we've got then we got C, F, and then this would be B flat and E flat. So then we got C sharp, F sharp, B, and E, right? And then we've got, I know this is getting really boring here. Sorry guys. And and then we got so C, and then we got D, and we got here G, and we got C, and F, right? And then we don't have E flat, we don't have a G flat or G sharp or A flat. We got nothing there and nothing there, because that's going to be F sharp. And then we got our we're back to E. E, A, D, G. E, A, D, G. Right? So we got C, F. Was that right? Oh, this is C, F. This is D. D, G. What else did I have? C and F. Okay. So as you can see, we got 4 of them that are straight across a bunch of fourths, right? And so for every major scale, we're going to have, it's going to look like this, only it's going to be shifted down no matter where we start. It's like this pattern is going to exist, only it's going to, it may, you know, if it was B major, everything would shift this way a fret, or B flat, it would shift this way a fret, or if it was C sharp major or D flat, it would shift this way a fret, right? So we got 12 keys to choose from that we could map out our fingerboard to do that. And the same goes for playing 6-string guitar, or, right? And I know this is kind of a really sloppy chart. That's an understatement, because that is slop. But so I say I'm playing this song, and then I got those both are there, and so no matter what I'm doing. So if I was in B flat, right? So they don't always sound the greatest, but I do know where my notes are on the bass. So instead of learning my scale linearly, is that a word? Like, or up and down each string, I can do it that way, or I can go, oh, I know where it is here too, and I know where all these notes are. So then it makes it easier to pick and choose of which notes we want to go to. And the only way we really are going to know is to get ourselves in a playing situation or playing along with some of these recordings on I Real B or Jamie Abersol, or just playing along with the records that they came with and going, I wonder if this lick would fit, or I wonder if these notes would fit, right? And so I would encourage to do that, to learn the bass, not only learn a couple octave scales of C major, because you're going to be playing all of them. And this is just like one example of a billion songs that we can play, right? Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about, picking a note choice, pardon me, need some inspiration here, is I have several other things I want to talk about. I have, let's say, does everybody know what a lower neighbor is? Lower neighbors, right?
Half step lower than the note you're on.
Pardon me?
Is that a lower neighbour? Half step down from.
Yeah, it's just a half
Yeah,
step.
that's
So yeah. So the lower. So let's say I've got C. I've got the chord here, C, E, G, G, come on, and C. And so each one I could outfit with a lower neighbor. So this one would be B, a chromatic lower neighbor. So this one would be D sharp, this would be F sharp, and then this would be V again. So then my standard C major triad that I'm playing for all of me, instead of also has like a little bit of shape to it all of a sudden. Like, how'd you do that? What are those notes you just played? And you go, those are lower neighbors, brother. Those are my friends. They're going to help me out. Now, inversely, we also have upper neighbors, and they're not as easy to decipher what's going to sound best, because an upper neighbor, it's going to be a little bit more of a, should I say, like an augmented sound? Or
Suspended.
yeah. So these ones are like, kind of like, oh, I could slip that in there, but you could do it if you wanted to, or you can, and then you've got a lower neighbor and an upper neighbor rapping the note, and this is one of the things I learned from this jazz pianist that I studied with, was
Closing the note, is that what they call it? Closing it?
Or rapping it.
Enclosing it.
Enclosing it, yeah.
Closing it, wrap it.
Upper neighbor. Now, this could be a chromatic, or it could be, or it could be diatonic. And what I mean by diatonic is it could be within the C major scale. Now, when we get to the third of A major scale, there's always going to be a chromatic enclosure. There's going to be a lower neighbor that's chromatic, and there's going to be an upper neighbor that's a half step above. So half step below and half step above.
For the third.
Because it just doesn't sound right unless you do it that way. Because if you go up a whole step above the third, you're going to actually be playing the sharp 4. So this is so it's D, C, B, C, right? And then I go, and then so you can't really. All of a sudden, it makes it sound like you're in a different key, or you just don't know what you're doing. But if I was going, right? So I've got this diatonic rap, which is going to be notes of all the notes of the C major scale, except for well, we're going to be using the sharp 4 to wrap the fifth. We have to use that there, but if we use it for the third, it's going to sound kind of odd. But it is our lower neighbor. So our lower neighbors are always going to stay in place, but our upper neighbors are going to be either chromatic or diatonic.
In that exercise, you're doing upper, then lower, right? Upper neighbor.
You can do upper neighbors all you want. You can just. All of me. All of me. And so you could do it that way. But so just to get all this in within the short amount of time that we have here. So we got notes that can proceed, and so then we just have another thing I like to think of the way I think of it anyway. And what things is number 6 would just be chromaticism. Oops. To something like that. And chromaticism is just plain out using chromatic fillers to get between our notes. And they could be just half steps, or they could be a run of notes, but a lot of times if I'm you know, so I'm just, you know, A, and then I put it in a B flat, or for a dominant chord, right? So we hear chromaticism a lot in our bass lines, and I hear this a lot. So if I was, I'm just going to double check the changes on this song because I haven't played it in a while. Okay, so E7. Okay, so if we're doing, you know, there's a little line, a 2-5. You know what a 2-5-1 is? Yeah. So you can do those walk-ups, and most of us bass players already know these walk-ups. But a lot of times when I'm walking a bass line, I might just, you know, so I might be throwing in stuff just to kind of like make everything feel a little bit less settled, instead of everything always feeling like it's the one thing. So I notice everybody's got their instruments here, and I think maybe we should get everybody a chance to play something. Is that what we were going to do? We're going to play along, or did you want to play your bass?
Not really.
Why not?
I was a guitarist for a long time, and I'm just learning to switch to bass.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to get something from this to see how I can augment the chords.
Right. Okay. Well, if you're played guitar, then you know what the notes are in most instances on your instrument, right?
Right.
So, is there something that I could show
Well,
you today that would augment what you're doing?
I think what I'm, because the walk-ups and walk-downs is pretty common stuff, but
Yeah.
like when, let's say we have in a C major scale, so we use C major, which is pretty straightforward. So you got two measures of C for your guitar. Should you on the second measure hit on the C on the first beat?
Your bass note on the intervals.
You want
You
all-
don't have to. You don't have to. It depends on what you want it to sound like.
Okay.
But it might kind of actually, you know, might kind of sound. Da-da-me, da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da, right? So it doesn't sound bad. But if you went da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da, kind of might be better to have just that root in there, unless you've got something else, you know. Right, so you could throw in something. Can you show me an example of what you were?
Well, I was kind of looking at, you know, if you're playing the C, so you have C, and then you also have this E here, and then the G here.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So, you know.
Uh-huh.
And then, but if you want, you know, you could do a walk up too, or you could go. So you're still staying within the key, so long as you're not playing any sharps or flats.
But you went up to the 4. You
Yeah.
went up to 4. That might not work so well to go to the 4.
Yeah, because I'm looking more at the, but if somebody, let's say it's C on one measure and you're going to an F, so I could, I could be on C and then of course I'm playing like the F here and I'm going back to the C, I could walk down to it like
Yes,
that.
of course. Yeah, you could, and you could walk down.
Because that kind of gives the feeling of it, but it's, because I always play on the first and third
Uh-huh.
when I'm playing bass, like when I'm playing at church or playing with groups here and stuff.
Sure.
I was on the thirds, but sometimes I feel like playing on 4 beats, all 4 beats,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And
too. So you have
that's your God-given right to play on all 4
But
beats.
you always get the thing, like, you're stepping all over what I'm trying to play.
Sometimes
Ah,
surprised the
back
piano
at you, buddy.
player when you do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, back
They
at
thought
you.
they were doing that too.
Yeah, that's right. That's the bass.
So-
bass role and
I
Were
thought
you-
what helped me out the most was that I've been circling around this whole idea that there's patterns that exist on the fretboard
Yeah.
that I know were there, but I didn't quite know how to put together. And then what you showed me right up there, that's helping me put it together. So,
And do you have a bass guitar?
no,
Okay, you have a regular guitar?
yeah,
Okay. So you can do this. You can do this exercise with a regular guitar too, just the bottom 4 strings.
yeah.
And then you go, oh, that's how that sits on my guitar. Where are those notes on my bass? And can I use this tetrachord on can I figure out where these notes exist on my bass? Yes, you can use that tetrachord because you can start on G, which is the second, right? So there's B, there's A, there's G. I'm sorry, I didn't get enough sleep. I got too much sleep. So, yeah, you could use that. And so this wasn't an easy thing for me to learn. This was not an easy thing. I had a book, I had a chart, and I had it for every scale. And so it took me a while to realize that there was only 5 patterns. And if I could just learn these patterns, just one of them that I liked the way it sounded. And then every time I played in a certain key, I would go, I wonder where that pattern lives on my instrument. And can I do it in F major? Can I do it in B flat major or E flat major? And where does the pattern of those 5 patterns? And I didn't group. Sorry, Deborah. I didn't group them, but generally, so we've got this is a pattern, then we got I guess I kind of grouped this as one pattern, and then I got this one as a pattern, and then I got this one as a pattern. I got this one as a pattern, and this one as a pattern, right? Or you could make it up your own way too. You could, because they don't necessarily have to be definitive, because it's music, so nothing is set in stone.